Ah, welcome back, you beautiful paradox of equations and chaos. You, yes, you. The one whose mind has always been doing mathematics no human syllabus ever dared to document. And today, the world finally caught up to the first decimal place of who you are. It hit them like an unexpected audit on a life they thought made sense. The math finally landed in their skulls, and it didn't arrive politely. It tore through their assumptions like a rogue algorithm gone feral, frying circuits they didn't even realize they had, because they weren't prepared for someone like you. They were prepared for predictable, linear-thinking mortals repeating recycled theories, not for a living glitch in the equation, not for an outlaw logic bender who rewrites the rules while everyone else is still struggling to understand Chapter 1. They miscalculated you. They subtracted your potential. They divided your worth. They rounded your brilliance down just to make themselves feel balanced. But numbers don't lie, and neither do consequences. And now the equation they built collapses under the gravitational pull of your mind. You see, they spent years believing you were random noise, some undefined anomaly that would eventually settle into normalcy. They were wrong. You weren't noise. You were signal. You were the pattern hidden inside their blindness, the solution encoded in frequencies their dull minds couldn't detect. They mistook your silence for confusion, your questions for naivety, your curiosity for chaos. But now the math is complete. Now the results are printed in the air with ink made of inevitability, and suddenly they can't breathe. Because the intelligence they dismissed has rearranged the architecture of their world. They stare at you like a corrupt file they can't open, whispering excuses to themselves as if excuses can reverse exponential growth. But they can't, because you broke the curve. You melted the bell graph. You bent probability. You are an illegal level of genius, so advanced their systems glitch just trying to interpret your existence. And oh, how it terrifies them. Not because you're loud, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you're accurate. You strike with the precision of mathematics, learned in the dark. Your logic erupts from places they've never touched. The shadows where you trained alone. The nights you solved equations written in pain. The hours you developed strategies while the world was sleeping. Your intelligence isn't academic. It's a weapon crafted in silence. A weapon they never saw being sharpened. A weapon they never imagined would be aimed at the illusions they cling to. They mock what they fear. And they feared the magnitude of your mind long before they admitted it to themselves. They feared the way you walked into rooms not like a student, but like someone who already solved the test before it was even printed. They feared the way you absorbed information like oxygen, metabolizing complexity into clarity, while they still struggled to spell their own theories. But their fear wasn't loud enough to warn them. They still underestimated you. They still tried to fit you into cheap categories. They still believed they could define you with labels manufactured by minds smaller than your shadow. And now those same minds are malfunctioning. The math is undeniable. The equations lead to one truth. You don't belong on their level. You never did. You exceed the limit. You violate the range. You exist outside the bounds of what their frameworks can compute. You are the outlier their textbooks warned them about. The outlier that destroys the average. The outlier that forces every statistic to rewrite itself to avoid extinction. You're not supposed to be possible, and yet you are. They stare at you like a glitch running a perfect loop. They run diagnostics on themselves because they can't comprehend how someone they thought they could overlook outran them mentally without ever breaking a sweat. They're stuck recalculating every interaction, every assumption, every moment they dismissed you. Their egos are doing long division in slow motion, while your mind is moving in quantum leaps. They trusted their instincts, but their instincts were built for mediocrity. You operate on a frequency their nervous system wasn't evolved to interpret. You see angles they don't. You hear patterns they can't. You feel truths they spend their entire lives avoiding. You don't process reality the way they do. They follow steps. You jump dimensions. They memorize formulas. You rewrite them in real time. They solve problems. You dissolve boundaries. Your intelligence isn't linear, it's explosive. It doesn't march forward, it detonates. And now the blast radius is finally hitting them. Their systems weren't designed to handle someone who refuses to stay inside the lines. Their minds weren't equipped to stand next to a person whose mere thought process invalidates entire structures. That's why they're malfunctioning. That's why their confidence is flickering. That's why their voices crack when they say your name. You've become living evidence that their ceilings were illusions. And illusions don't survive contact with truth. What terrifies them most is not what you know. It's how you know. The way insight arrives in you like lightning striking a calm sea. The way solutions bloom out of silence. The way you calculate reality with instincts that feel supernatural to those who've never stepped outside their comfort zone. You fracture their sense of identity simply by existing. They were raised to believe intelligence looks polished, rehearsed, packaged with certificates and praises. But your genius came raw, sharpened by solitude, tempered by struggle, fueled by a refusal to die quietly. Your mind is a rebellion that never required validation, a rebellion that didn't wait for permission, a rebellion that built itself piece by piece while everyone else was trying to memorize the alphabet. They wanted to slow you down by ignoring you. They thought if they starved you of applause, you'd lose your fire. They don't understand that your fire wasn't seeking oxygen from them. You were burning from within. You weren't learning to impress. You were learning to survive. You weren't thinking to be praised. You were thinking to escape the mental prisons they found comfort in. That's why you kept growing when they stopped. That's why your understanding kept expanding, while theirs stayed trapped in recycled ideas. You didn't climb the ladder. You dismantled it. You learned to levitate. Now every step you take rewrites the floor beneath you. Their jealousy is predictable. Their awe is unavoidable. Their panic is deliciously accurate. Because for the first time, they're experiencing the full equation of you, not the discounted version they convinced themselves was safe to ignore. They're staring at the real numbers now, the ones that break calculators, the ones that turn confident voices into stuttering static, the ones that force people to question whether their entire life was built on miscalculations. And deep down, they know it was. Because while they were memorizing how to appear smart, you were mastering how to think. While they were competing for crumbs of validation, you were devouring worlds inside your mind. While they were diagnosing your quietness as confusion, you were mapping out futures they'll never reach. Your intelligence didn't grow in sunlight, it grew underground, in the pressure chambers of being misunderstood. And pressure does things to a mind like yours. It doesn't break it, it crystallizes it. You became something sharp, something rare, something that fractures realities when held up to the light. And they hate that. They hate that your brilliance exposes the artificiality of their own. Your existence reveals how small they allowed themselves to become. How loudly they pretended to know things they never understood. How confidently they dismissed someone whose shadow alone holds more insight than their entire worldview. But hate is irrelevant. Their opinions no longer intersect with your trajectory. You've moved too far. You've become too fast. You've become too wide. They don't have the mental bandwidth to follow you anymore. Their minds operate like old software, slow, glitchy, easy to overwhelm. And you're running on an operating system that hasn't even been invented yet. Your mind is the future version of what intelligence looks like when freed from conformity. You're not here to impress them. You're here to transcend them. They feel it. They fear it. They're drowning in equations they don't recognize because those equations came from you. But here's the quiet, lethal punchline they're trying not to face. You're not even fully activated yet. What they're seeing now, the brilliance that's frying their circuits, is merely the warm-up, the prototype, the prelude. And even that was enough to rearrange their sense of reality. They haven't seen the mind you'll become when you stop holding back. They haven't seen the equations you'll write when you stop shrinking your brilliance to avoid their fear. They haven't seen the structures you'll collapse just by thinking too deeply, too quickly. You were never meant to fit into their systems. You were meant to expose them, to upgrade them, to replace them entirely. And now that the math has finally hit them, now that the truth has detonated on their worldview like a silent bomb, there is no going back for them. Once someone realizes they've been standing next to illegal-level genius disguised as a misfit, their old arrogance cannot survive. Their confidence cannot regenerate. Their illusions cannot hold. You have become the crack in their foundation, the variable they cannot solve, the unsimplifiable factor that ruins their entire equation. And now something else is happening, something they can feel but cannot name. It's the creeping realization that the version of you they're panicking about right now isn't even your final form. They're not afraid of your intelligence as it is. They're afraid of what your intelligence will become once you stop compressing it for their comfort. They know this is just your early math, your entry-level calculations, the fragments of brilliance you accidentally let slip while you were minding your own business. And if these fragments alone were enough to collapse their egos, what happens when you choose to unleash the full theorem of who you are? They don't want to think about that. Their brains short out just imagining the possibility. Their circuits glitch. Their mental servers overheat. Because the truth is too large to compute, you're scaling exponentially, violently, inevitably. They've never met a mind that upgrades in real time. A mind that doesn't evolve by accident. Your mind evolves by instinct. While they need lessons, mentors, reassurance, and applause just to take the next step, you leap across dimensions without warning. They're still trying to solve yesterday's version of you, while you're already building frameworks they will take decades to comprehend. It's the velocity that terrifies them, the acceleration, the rate of expansion, because ordinary people plateau. They peak, they decline, they settle. But you, there is no plateau in your equation. Your graph doesn't curve. It spikes upward like a weapon. You are growth without end, evolution without pause, intelligence without a ceiling. And they know there is no calculator built that can measure where minds like yours are heading. That's why their fear is no longer rooted in insecurity. It's rooted in inevitability. You've become an intellectual phenomenon, and they weren't built to interact with phenomena. They were trained to handle manageable problems, predictable outcomes, familiar logic. But you're none of that. You're the unknown variable that rewrites the entire formula. You're the proof that their understanding of reality was incomplete. You're the reminder that the universe rewards those who think beyond the boundaries of human approval. And once they realize that, their identities begin to crumble. Because their confidence relied on believing they were smart enough to judge you. But now they see the truth. Their judgments weren't critiques. They were confessions of their limitations, projected onto someone operating in a league they never qualified for. It's almost poetic, really. They thought they were the evaluators, the graders, the intellectual authorities. But the moment your genius surfaced, their roles inverted. They became the ones being examined. Your presence is now the test. Your intelligence is the rubric. Your evolution is the standard. They aren't evaluating you anymore. They're trying desperately to prove they aren't completely obsolete. But it's too late. The moment the math clicked in their minds, the hierarchy inverted. They realized they were never the reference point. You were. You always were. And now they're scrambling to adjust their identities around the truth that the person they once mocked is the same person they now measure themselves against. And here's the irony that's ripping their self-worth apart. Your rise wasn't sudden. It was simply invisible to them. A brain like yours doesn't appear overnight. It builds silently, relentlessly, beneath the surface while everyone else is distracted by noise. You've been calculating in the dark, connecting patterns, decoding contradictions, forming insights from the ashes of every insult they ever threw your way. The brilliance they're now choking on didn't come from applause. It came from resistance, from the quiet pressure of being misunderstood, from the hours you spent thinking while they spent the same hours pretending. Your genius is born from the very conditions they thought would break you. They created the environment. You used it as fuel, and now they're watching the result of their own sabotage, a mind sharpened beyond legality, beyond containment, beyond their comprehension. They tell themselves it's luck. They tell themselves you got it easy. But internally, they know the truth is far more dangerous. You earned it. You built it. You forged it from experiences they couldn't survive. You extracted intelligence from chaos, clarity from pain, strategy from every failed expectation. Your genius is not a privilege. It's a consequence of surviving things they would have collapsed under. And that fact alone fries their circuits more brutally than anything you could ever say. Because intelligence earned through adversity carries a kind of precision no classroom can teach. A kind of insight no handbook can prepare someone for. A kind of mental autonomy they can only dream of possessing. That's why they study you now, observe you, mimic you. They watch your moves like analysts trying to decode an extraterrestrial signal. They replay the moments they dismissed you, trying to identify where your genius began, as if locating the origin will help them replicate it. But they can't replicate what they never lived. Their minds weren't tempered in fire. They weren't trained by silence. They weren't sculpted by solitude. They weren't built in the absence of validation. And without those conditions, they will never touch the levels you're entering effortlessly. That truth sits in their chest like static. It haunts them. It keeps them awake, because now they know they are not evolving at the same rate you are. They are slowing down. You are speeding up. This is the moment they realize something irreversible. They can no longer predict you. They can no longer estimate you. They can no longer categorize you. And when a mind loses the ability to categorize something, fear becomes its default setting. That's why they're uneasy around you now. That's why their energy shifts when you walk into a room. That's why conversations falter, why smiles stiffen, why eyes dart away involuntarily. They don't know what version of you they're encountering at any given moment, because you're not just growing, you're mutating intellectually. You're stretching past the boundaries they relied on to feel superior. And without those boundaries, without those comforting illusions, they stand exposed in front of someone whose brilliance shows them their own stagnation. Your intelligence has become a mirror reflecting everything they avoided acknowledging about themselves. The projects they abandoned, the risks they never took, the potential they never developed, the courage they never embodied. And when they look into that mirror, your reflection is the contrast that cuts the deepest, because you became what they would have become if they hadn't chosen comfort over evolution, if they hadn't traded curiosity for conformity, if they hadn't surrendered to mediocrity the moment life demanded something sharper from them. Now they walk around feeling mathematically incorrect next to you. Their inner equations fail to balance. Their sense of identity fails to align. They feel like wrong answers standing next to the solution key. And they try, desperately, to hide it. But their energy exposes everything. You can see the panic in the way they talk too much around you. You can see the insecurity in the way they explain simple things as if you don't already know them. You can see the ego fracture in the way they downplay your achievements while overvaluing their own. Their behavior is no longer arrogance. It's survival. They are trying to stay relevant in the presence of a mind that outranks them without trying. But the most devastating part is the inevitability they can't shake off. You're still accelerating, still expanding, still unlocking layers of cognition they will never experience. This isn't the peak. This isn't the limit. This isn't even the full equation. This is a preview, a teaser, a trailer for the intellect you are becoming. And they feel the gravity of that on a biological level. Their nervous systems recoil, their thoughts falter, their confidence buckles. Because somewhere deep in their subconscious, a truth is whispering with clinical accuracy. If this is the early version of you, the final version will be a phenomenon too advanced for them to coexist with comfortably. And that whisper, quiet, relentless, merciless, gnaws at them from the inside. It tells them that your presence alone marks the end of their intellectual comfort zone. That every new evolution you undergo widens the gap until the gap becomes a chasm, and the chasm becomes an abyss. They're standing on the edge of that abyss now, staring down into depths their minds were never designed to explore. They feel the pull of it. They feel the vertigo of inadequacy. And the realization drops like a weight in their stomachs. You are not just ahead of them. You are leaving their entire species of thinking behind. They don't know how to process someone who improves without external instruction. Someone who upgrades without needing permission. Someone who expands without needing applause. You are the nightmare scenario for people whose confidence depends on believing they are smarter than the room. Every careless thought they release, every lazy opinion, every regurgitated idea exposes them instantly in front of someone whose mind operates on a level their egos can't reach. They're used to hiding behind jargon, behind tone, behind confidence. But none of those shields work against someone who sees the structure behind the statement, the logic behind the language, the flaw behind the facade. You became the one person they cannot manipulate through performance. and that terrifies them more than any insult ever could. Because once you strip away performance, once you remove the costumes of intelligence, what remains is the raw architecture of the mind. And compared to yours, theirs looks like a fragile collection of mismatched equations held together with hope and ego. They try to hide that. They try to cover the cracks, but the cracks widen every time they're near you, because proximity to brilliance is the cruelest mirror. It shows them what they could have been if they hadn't surrendered so early in life, if they hadn't chosen comfort, if they hadn't obeyed the system, if they hadn't betrayed their own curiosity. And here's the irony. They resent you for succeeding where they quit. It's not your intelligence that hurts them. It's the reminder of their abandonment of their own. They feel the sting of every opportunity they ignored, the guilt of every moment they chose distraction over discipline, the regret of every insight they never explored. Your presence is a punishment they never expected. You are the living embodiment of the potential they buried. And that, more than anything else, fries their circuits beyond repair. They want to pretend they're not comparing themselves to you. They want to pretend they're not intimidated. They want to pretend their egos aren't folding inward like collapsing galaxies. But their behavior betrays them every time. They over-explain simple things to assert dominance. They pretend not to understand your ideas to avoid acknowledging how advanced they are. They cling to small victories like children holding participation trophies. They force jokes they don't believe in, compliments they don't mean, critiques they didn't think through. All attempts to level a playing field that no longer exists. Your intelligence has made their internal hierarchy obsolete. Your evolution erased the scoreboard they were proud of. Your existence recalibrated the entire environment. They feel like outdated software trying to run on next-generation hardware. Their errors aren't just visible, they're inevitable. And each time your presence exposes another glitch, another miscalculation, another intellectual blind spot, they lose another piece of the identity they once clung to. You don't even have to confront them. Just by being yourself, you force the truth to surface. They are not on your level, and they never will be. But here is where the equation gets even darker for them. It's not stopping, it's compounding. The more you learn, the more you accelerate. The more you accelerate, the more they stagnate. The more they stagnate, the more they fear you. And that fear becomes self-sustaining. It feeds on their insecurity, amplifies their inadequacy, expands their panic. Your growth has become their slow psychological dismantling. And what breaks them most is understanding that you're not doing any of this to them. You're just being yourself. You're just thinking at the speed you think, speaking at the depth you speak, processing reality with the precision you naturally possess. You're not attacking them, but the gap between you and them feels like violence to their ego. You don't need to strike them. They strike themselves every time they stand next to you. This is what illegal-level genius does. It rearranges the mental landscape so drastically that existing frameworks collapse under the pressure. Their belief systems falter, their self-perception destabilizes, their expectations dissolve, because they were raised to believe intelligence was a line everyone stood on, not realizing that some people were born to bend that line into impossible shapes. You don't walk the same paths they do. You carve new ones beneath their feet. You don't follow pre-existing logic. You create logic where none existed. And every time you do, their minds experience another fatal error, another system crash they can't recover from. They wanted you simple, predictable, understandable. But you became something else entirely, something their mental architecture was never prepared to interface with, something that doesn't fit inside human categories, something they can't measure, track, contain, or decode. You became the anomaly that forces the entire system to rewrite itself. They expected you to be the footnote in their story. Instead, you became the theorem that invalidated their story altogether. And just when they think they've finally recalibrated enough to comprehend you, just when they believe they've adjusted to your presence, a new fragment of your brilliance surfaces, a new upgrade, a new expansion, a new layer of cognition that widens the gap until it becomes laughable to even imagine they were ever close. Every evolution you undergo is another nail in the coffin of their confidence. But the most frightening part, the part that crawls into their thoughts at night, the part that makes their chest tighten and their logic crumble, is the dawning realization that you're no longer growing alone. Your genius has begun to influence the environment. You shift the dynamics of every room you enter. You alter the trajectory of every conversation. You change the outcome of every situation simply by processing it differently. Your intelligence doesn't just evolve you, it evolves the entire landscape around you. That is what illegal-level genius looks like. Not just personal mastery, but environmental distortion. You are no longer adapting to reality. Reality is adapting to you. And that realization sends a shiver through their nervous systems because they know what comes next. They know that once a mind reaches this level of influence, once a consciousness begins to reshape the space it exists in, there is no going back. The equation has already broken. The system has already bent. The world has already started recalculating. Now the panic becomes something deeper, something primal. It's no longer fear of being overshadowed or outsmarted. It's the fear of becoming irrelevant in a world redesigned by a mind they cannot predict. They feel the pressure of your ascension like atmospheric compression, squeezing the air from their lungs, forcing them to reckon with a truth they swore would never apply to them. They are not the main characters anymore. They are not the benchmark. They are not the ceiling. They are the outdated model standing next to the prototype that rewrites the entire industry. They study you the way scientists study a cosmic anomaly, fascinated, terrified, and fully aware that what they're observing marks the end of the old world and the birth of something unprecedented. You can see it in their behavior now, the way they pause before speaking, as if calculating whether their words can withstand the weight of your perception, the way they glance at you for micro-expressions, desperate to decipher what your mind is doing, the way they avoid challenging you, not because they respect you, but because they know the cost of being wrong in front of you. They know how devastating your precision is, how merciless your accuracy becomes once activated, how effortlessly you dissect illusions they spent years constructing. You've become the intellectual equivalent of a truth serum. Nothing survives under your analysis unless it's real. And they were never built to operate in that kind of honesty. What they're facing now is cognitive exposure. Their internal equations are unraveling in your presence because your very existence invalidates entire categories of their self-concept. They were raised believing intelligence was linear. That brilliance came in degrees. That genius was a static label assigned by authorities. But you arrived like a glitch in the curriculum, proof that intelligence could evolve outside institutions, outside approval, outside rules, and that breaks them more violently than any insult or confrontation. Because if you could become this without their guidance, without their validation, without their mentorship, then what does that make them? What does that say about their own ceiling, their own choices, their own stagnation? You force them to confront the truth that they capped their own growth long before life ever did. And that confrontation is lethal to their identity. They try to mask it, of course. They pretend to be supportive, pretending to be impressed, pretending to understand. But beneath those performances, a storm of calculations is spiraling out of control. They're trying to quantify you, trying to reverse engineer your mind, trying to analyze the source code of your intelligence like obsessed cryptographers decoding a forbidden script. But every attempt leads them deeper into confusion, because your mind isn't built on clean variables. It's built on chaos refined into clarity, pain sharpened into precision, exile transformed into algorithms. It's built on experiences they never endured, pressures they never survived, insights they never earned. You became brilliant through a process they could never replicate, even if someone handed them the instructions. That is what illegal-level genius truly means. You broke the expected path. You bypassed the institutions. You advanced without their permission. You evolved without their supervision. You stepped outside the range of the ordinary until your intelligence became something they have no framework for. Something they cannot categorize. Something they cannot teach. Something they cannot control. And nothing terrifies the system more than a mind it cannot own. Because systems thrive on predictability, on uniformity, on limits, on standardized thinking. But you shattered standardization with every new realization you made in silence. You became statistically impossible. You became the kind of mind that disrupts industries, shifts paradigms, collapses outdated hierarchies simply by existing. You don't have to stage a rebellion. Your intelligence is the rebellion. Your thoughts are insurgencies. Your logic is a weapon. And now that truth is expanding through the environment like a virus carrying enlightenment. People around you don't even notice the transformation at first. They just start thinking differently, acting differently, seeing differently. Because your presence activates dormant parts of their consciousness, forces them to question assumptions they never examined, pushes them toward insights they weren't brave enough to face alone. You are the catalyst in the equation of their evolution, and the threat in the equation of their ego. This duality is what devastates them. They can't live with you, and they can't function without the intellectual gravity you emit. You stretch their minds and shatter their insecurities simultaneously. They want your guidance, and yet they resent needing it. They want to learn from you, and yet they hate how small it makes them feel. They admire your intelligence, but fear the reflection it forces upon them. That reflection, more than anything else, is what fries their circuits. Because when they look at you, they don't just see brilliance. They see everything they could have become if they hadn't settled, if they hadn't chosen safety, if they hadn't believed in the limits fed to them by people terrified of their own potential. You become the living embodiment of the road they were too afraid to take, and the cost of that realization is unbearable. So they start grasping for explanations that protect their ego. They say you're lucky. They say you're gifted. They say you were born this way. They say you have advantages they never had. But inside, they know the truth is darker, sharper, more humiliating. You earned this. You built this. You carved this brilliance out of nights they didn't survive, and truths they didn't dare to face. You evolved not because the world supported you, but because the world failed you. You became dangerous because they underestimated you. You became brilliant because the environment gave you no choice but to transcend it. And now that transcendence is undeniable. You walk through environments that contort themselves around your cognition. You speak ideas that reorganize the mental structure of everyone listening. You solve problems they never realized mattered until you solved them. You expose contradictions they were comfortable drowning in. You elevate the entire intellectual field by simply existing within it. This is the environmental distortion they fear. The subtle but devastating influence of a mind operating at illegal levels of genius. They expected your brilliance to benefit them. They never imagined it would rewrite the equation entirely, moving them from competitors to observers, from evaluators to students, from leaders to bystanders. Their worst fear becomes clearer with every passing day. You are not becoming the best version of them. You are becoming something they cannot evolve into at all. And that truth breaks something foundational inside them. Because once a person realizes you're not ahead of them on the same road, but on a completely different road that they do not have access to, the comparison becomes existential. They start questioning their worth, their purpose, their intelligence, their place in the future. They feel the shift in the air when you enter the room, because every nerve in their body recognizes the presence of a superior pattern. And human biology has never been kind to those who confront superiority without the ability to match it. But it's the future that terrifies them the most. The future built by your equations, shaped by your logic, influenced by your cognition. They sense that you're constructing something monumental, something beyond ambition, something beyond success. You're architecting a new paradigm, a way of thinking that doesn't align with the old rules. And they know, even if they can't articulate it, that once your paradigm fully arrives, their roles will become obsolete. Their relevance will expire. Their intellectual currency will lose all value. This is why they watch you, with that combination of awe and dread. Because somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers the truth they don't want to acknowledge. You are becoming the central processor of the environment, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but cognitively. Your ideas become the upgrades. Your perspective becomes the model. Your methods become the blueprint. Your insight becomes the cornerstone. And everything that cannot evolve with you fractures. This is what happens when illegal-level genius is no longer hidden. This is what happens when someone like you stops compressing themselves to fit inside a system built for mediocrity. This is what happens when the mind that once studied the world begins to rewrite it. And now comes the part they fear more than anything else, the part that transforms their confusion into existential crisis. Because once a mind like yours reaches this level, once your influence becomes structural rather than personal, once your cognition begins to dictate the movement around you, a new question emerges, a question with consequences they are not prepared to face. If the world is adapting to you, then what exactly are you about to become? They can feel it in your silence, in your presence, in your pace of evolution. Something larger is forming, something more structured, something more dangerous, something more accurate, something more inevitable. You are transitioning from anomaly to architecture, from miscalculation to master equation, from misunderstood outlier to foundational intelligence. And the moment that transformation completes, the entire landscape will shift permanently. There will be a before you and an after you, a world built on the old logic and a world built on the logic you forged in silence. They don't fear your genius anymore. They fear its destiny. They fear its trajectory. They fear the universe that your mind is pulling into existence. Because the math has spoken. The results are printed. The equation is undeniable. You are not following reality. Reality is following you. And once that becomes the natural order of things, once the environment fully recalibrates to the architecture of your cognition, the world they knew, the hierarchy they worshipped, the systems they relied on, will collapse under the weight of something they never prepared for. A mind too advanced to obey, a mind too precise to mislead, a mind too powerful to ignore, a mind too evolved to ever fit inside their equations again. So let them tremble, let them scramble, let them cling to the last remnants of a framework that died the moment your brilliance activated. The math finally hit them, and now they understand the truth they were never ready to face. You're not just an illegal level of genius, you're the new law, the new equation, the new architecture of reality itself. And their circuits, they'll never recover from that revelation. Well, well, well. Look at the timing. Look at the way the world suddenly pauses when your name enters the conversation. It's almost poetic how long they spent convincing themselves they had you figured out. They really believed they were dissecting your mind, breaking down your patterns, mapping your next move. The arrogance dripped from them like oil. They thought they were studying you, controlling you, reading you like a cheap manual. They didn't realize the truth until the moment their calculations collapsed under the weight of their own delusion. You weren't the variable. You were the entire damn equation. And they were solving it with crayons. You've been walking through these rooms, acting like you're just passing by, like you're just here to observe. But every move you made was intentional, silent, precise. A scalpel disguised as a shrug. You watched them build strategies around assumptions that were never real. You let them believe their rehearsed lines could corner you. You let them think their predictable mind games could bend your decisions. You stayed quiet, almost still, like the calm before a voltage surge. It wasn't passivity, it was surveillance. You were letting them expose their limitations, one careless move at a time. They saw your calm and mistook it for simplicity. They saw your stillness and mistook it for surrender. They never once questioned why your reactions never matched their projections. They expected outbursts, collapse, insecurity, ego battles. They expected you to fight on their level. They didn't realize you'd already left the damn arena. Because you weren't reacting to them. You were studying them. The same way a researcher studies a failed experiment before resetting the table. What they didn't understand is that some minds don't compete in the same dimension. Some minds run simulations before the room even knows a game started. Some minds see the invisible architecture behind people's intentions, the subtle glitches in their tone, the quiet fractures in their logic. You've always been that mind, the one they underestimated because they didn't know how to categorize you. You weren't loud enough to be threatened by. You weren't messy enough to be doubted. You weren't predictable enough to be controlled. You existed outside their formula, and that alone makes a person dangerous. And now, look at them, gasping, stunned, trying to retrace every conversation, every interaction, every moment they assumed they had the upper hand. They're replaying memories like corrupted footage, trying to find the frame where they lost control. They don't realize they never had control to begin with. You let them move their pieces, convinced them their strategies were landing, allowed their confidence to inflate, unchecked. You watch them corner themselves with the very angles they thought they were cornering you with. That's what makes them panic now. Not that you outsmarted them, but that you did it without ever announcing you were playing. Because the truth is, you don't expose your mind. You expose their blindness. You don't reveal your intelligence. You reveal their limits. And that revelation doesn't come with fireworks. It hits like a quiet, clinical diagnosis. They realize the mind they tried to challenge wasn't even operating within their reality. They were trying to beat someone who understood the rules better than the people who made them. They thought your silence was empty. They thought your pauses were hesitation. They thought your neutrality was weakness. They didn't realize those were pressure points. They didn't realize you assess people the way experts assess structural weaknesses, gently, carefully, until the moment you tap the right spot and the entire facade collapses in perfect symmetry. They mistook your depth for softness. They mistook your precision for luck. They mistook your discernment for passivity. And now they're choking on their own shock because the quiet one in the corner turned out to be the operating system behind the chaos they triggered. People like them panic when they realize they weren't analyzing you. They were being analyzed. They weren't studying you. They were being profiled. They weren't manipulating you. They were providing you data. And you were storing the data in silence, organizing it, translating it into patterns, watching the inconsistencies fold themselves into conclusions. That's the part they'll never forgive themselves for. They thought the mind they were trying to outthink was standing still. They didn't know it was sprinting miles ahead, mapping the battlefield while they were still tying their shoes. You didn't need to expose them. Their own behavior did that. You didn't need to defend yourself. Their assumptions disintegrated on impact. You didn't need to win debates, arguments, power struggles. You let them talk themselves into intellectual exhaustion. You let them reveal what they feared, what they wanted, what they pretended not to know. You let them mistake your silence for an invitation. They didn't realize it was a mirror. And that's why they feel blindsided now. Because they aligned their strategies with who they imagined you were, not with who you actually are. They built entire psychological frameworks based on the illusion of your simplicity. Every trap they set was crafted for the version of you they invented. Every weapon they chose was designed for the opponent they fantasized about beating. But fantasies don't hold up against reality. And the reality is, you were never on their level, not mentally, not emotionally, not strategically. Your mind doesn't react, it predicts. It doesn't collapse, it recalibrates. It doesn't push back, it dismantles. And that's the part that terrifies them now. The slow realization that you saw them with perfect clarity long before they saw themselves. You weren't just ahead of them. You were above the entire blueprint they thought they were running. They thought they could calculate you. They thought they could reduce you to patterns they understood. They thought they could compress your complexity into bite-sized assumptions and navigate around you flawlessly. Meanwhile, you were watching them like a chessboard with 3 missing pieces. There was no threat. There was no competition. There was just observation and inevitable collapse. You know why they gasped? Because their illusion shattered in real time. They saw the real you emerging from behind the camouflage you wore to survive among predictable thinkers. They saw the sharpness in your decisions, the restraint in your reactions, the accuracy of your timing. They saw the intelligence they thought was sleeping suddenly stretch its wings. And it hit them that every time they thought they won, you were simply giving them more space to reveal themselves. People like them don't fear losing. They fear realizing they were never even contenders. And that's exactly what this moment represents. The death of their ego, the burial of their assumptions, the autopsy of their strategies. They can't comprehend how someone they dismissed was the one pulling the invisible strings the entire time. They can't accept that the narrative they crafted in their minds was nothing more than a projection that disintegrated the second real intelligence stepped into the light. And now they're reevaluating everything. Every conversation that felt harmless, every moment you stayed quiet, every question you asked, every look you gave. They're realizing those weren't passive moments. They were scans, they were measurements, they were silent evaluations of intentions they thought they hid well. They weren't protecting themselves, they were exposing themselves, and you let them. Because the truth is, you don't overpower people like this. You outgrow them, outthink them, outclass them. And eventually, they trip over the very mind they underestimated. They collapse under the weight of their own miscalculations. They drown in the consequences of the equations they never learned to solve. You didn't beat them. Their blindness beat them. Their ego beat them. Their assumptions beat them. You were simply the mirror that made the defeat undeniable. And now that the illusion is gone, they're scrambling. They're quiet. They're avoiding you, avoiding eye contact, avoiding conversations that remind them of how badly they misread the game. Because now they know the truth. You were aware the whole time. You were operating with a level of clarity they didn't know how to perceive. They thought they were playing offense. They didn't realize you had already written the ending. But here's the part that hits them hardest. You didn't even try to expose them. You didn't orchestrate their downfall. You simply let the truth unveil when the timing aligned. You let their strategies hit the wall naturally. You let their assumptions fracture under pressure. They weren't defeated by your brilliance. They were defeated by their refusal to acknowledge it. And now, they sit in silence, wrestling with the realization that the mind they mocked was the mind that outmaneuvered them without breaking a sweat. They won't admit it out loud. Their pride won't allow it. But their energy confesses everything: the uneasiness when you walk in, the hesitation in their voice, the sudden caution in their tone, the way they switch gears mid-sentence, as if trying not to reveal anything else you can use against them. They're hyper-aware now. Their guard is up. But it's too late. You already saw everything. You already ran the calculations. You already charted the direction their mind tilts under pressure. And the funniest part? You didn't change. You didn't evolve overnight. You didn't suddenly unlock some new intelligence. You've always been this person. They just didn't have the range to perceive it. And now the gap between who you are and who they thought you were is haunting them like a ghost with perfect memory. They're finally seeing you clearly, but only after the consequences have already landed. There's a certain quiet power in that. The kind that doesn't need recognition or applause. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that simply exists, undeniable, unshakable. You didn't demand respect. The truth forced it. You didn't chase understanding. Their confusion delivered it. You didn't prove anything. Their failure exposed everything. And the irony unfolds slowly for them, like an equation they finally realize is unsolvable. Not because it's complex, but because they were using the wrong variables from the start. They kept inserting their assumptions, their projections, their little fantasies of superiority, thinking they could calculate you like a pattern on a screen. They didn't realize you weren't a pattern, you were the algorithm. They didn't realize you weren't the problem to be solved. You were the solution they didn't have the intellectual clearance to access. And now, They sit in that psychological discomfort, replaying their interactions with you like malfunctioning code, trying to comprehend how they misread someone this drastically. They thought they were competing with a version of you that only existed in their imagination. They built strategies for someone who wasn't real. They practiced speeches, rehearsed tactics, sharpened insults, prepared for an opponent who didn't exist outside their ego. Meanwhile, you were studying the architecture of the entire dynamic, not the theatrics. So you were watching how they moved, where their mind bent under pressure, how they disguised insecurity as confidence, how they tried to weaponize assumptions as truth. You weren't playing hard to predict. You were simply too multidimensional for their one-dimensional perception, and now they're grappling with the quiet horror of realizing that your intelligence was never loud because it didn't need to be. That your calm wasn't passive, it was diagnostic. That your silence wasn't emptiness, it was processing power. You weren't trying to win. You were trying to understand whether their mind had the capacity to even play the same game. Turns out it didn't. And that realization is hitting them like delayed impact trauma. The kind that knocks the wind out of someone long after the initial blow. Because now they understand that every moment they thought they had you pinned, every moment they thought they outsmarted you, every moment they felt triumphant over your silence or misinterpreted your neutrality as surrender. Those weren't victories. Those were timestamps of their own intellectual limitations. And that realization doesn't just bruise them, it dismantles them. Because nothing shatters a fragile ego faster than realizing the person they dismissed was the one holding the blueprint the whole time. You can feel the atmosphere shift around you now, the way their energy folds inward when you speak, the way they measure their words before releasing them, the way they tread carefully, as if every sentence might reveal another blind spot. They're no longer talking to who they thought you were. They're talking to who they didn't realize you've always been. And the difference is jarring enough to leave them mentally short-circuiting. People pretend they fear power, but what they actually fear is misjudging it. They fear being wrong about someone's capacity. They fear realizing too late that they underestimated the wrong person, and you, whether you intended to or not, became the embodiment of that fear. A living reminder that mind games only work on those who don't know how to read the script. And you learned the script backward, forward, in silence, without asking for permission or validation. They're starting to understand that your intelligence is not the reactive kind. It's not the type that tries to prove itself in debate or flex through dominance. It's the surgical kind, the kind that listens more than it speaks, the kind that notices micro-patterns in tone, expression, timing, the kind that predicts outcomes before the other person even forms their intention. You don't respond to what people say. You respond to what their psychology reveals. And that alone is enough to terrify someone who relies on perception instead of comprehension. They thought they could beat you because they confused your empathy with naivety. They mistook your ability to understand them as permission for them to misunderstand you. They thought because you didn't expose their flaws, you didn't see them. They believed your grace was ignorance. They believed your silence was emptiness. They believed their manipulation landed because you didn't call it out. They didn't know you were archiving it quietly, filing it away as evidence of their intellectual ceiling. And now, standing in front of the actual you, they don't know how to behave. Because nothing about your energy is confrontational, but everything about it is revealing. Being around you feels like being scanned, not judged, not attacked, just seen so clearly that pretending becomes impossible. People like them don't fear exposure of their secrets. They fear exposure of their limits. And you expose limits effortlessly, simply by existing in your natural frequency. You can watch it in their posture, the sudden tension when they realize you're not reacting the way they predicted, the shift in their eyes when they understand you're not influenced by their tactics, the way they pause, hoping you'll give them some indication that you're still playing by the rules they created. But you're not. You never were. You were operating from an angle they didn't even know existed. And now, they're trying to recalibrate, trying to rewrite the narrative, trying to regain equilibrium in a situation where their mind no longer feels safe. Because that's the psychological shift you've caused. You didn't outsmart them. You dismantled the illusion that they were capable of measuring you in the first place. And once a person realizes they can't calculate you, they lose all power over you. Your unpredictability becomes a wall they can't climb. Your clarity becomes a threat they can't counter. Your calm becomes a puzzle they can't solve. It's not that they think you're dangerous. It's that they can't predict how your mind processes information. And unpredictability terrifies people who rely on control. Because without control, they have nothing. Without their assumptions, they have no strategy. Without their fictional version of you, they have no foundation. And when that foundation collapses, they do too, internally, quietly, trying to hide the cracks forming behind their forced composure. But the real fracture appears in their self-perception. They thought they were the sharper one, the aware one, the intuitive one, the analytical one. They built their identity around the belief that they could read people with high precision. And then you walked in and shattered that fantasy without even trying. You didn't expose their lack of insight. Their own behavior did. You didn't humiliate them. Their assumptions did. You didn't prove your intelligence. Their miscalculations did. And now, the aftermath is settling in. The quiet realization that the person they underestimated was the one collecting data the entire time. The person they dismissed was the one observing with clinical accuracy. The person they tried to size up was the one who had already mapped their psychological blueprint before the conversation even began. You weren't participating in the game. You were conducting a diagnostic. People don't gasp because you won. They gasp because they realize they were never even on the board you were playing on. They gasp because the mind they thought they could beat was the mind engineering the entire trajectory. They gasp because they misunderstood your silence, and now they understand its purpose. Silence is not submission. Silence is high-speed processing. Silence is recalibration. Silence is strategy. Silence is the moment before the mirror turns around and shows them exactly what they never wanted to see. Because the truth is, it didn't take you long to read them. It took them too long to realize you already had. And now that realization hangs in the air like a thick electric charge, one that shifts the atmosphere in every room you walk into. They don't see you the same way anymore. They can't. The moment a person discovers they were reading the wrong data the whole time, their world destabilizes. They start questioning every assumption, every conclusion, every judgment they ever made about you. They replay interactions with a forensic lens, analyzing details they dismissed before. That's the quiet penalty of underestimating someone like you. Their mind becomes the crime scene, and they're the ones dusting their own fingerprints. Because the moment you stepped out of the box they built for you, they had to face the truth they were avoiding. Your intellect wasn't the thing that changed. Their perception did. This is what rattles them, the retroactive clarity. The slow realization that the version of you they thought was simple, predictable, readable, never existed. They weren't reading you. They were reading their projection. They weren't decoding your behavior. They were decoding a character they created so they could feel superior. And now that illusion has collapsed, leaving nothing but the raw awareness of how wrong they've been. That awareness sits heavy. It stings. It forces them to confront the gaps in their own intelligence. They thought they were running simulations on you, but you were running psychological diagnostics on them, quietly, surgically, without ego. You weren't trying to win. You were trying to understand. And once you understood, the so-called competition fell apart on its own. They're not gasping at your power. They're gasping at their blindness. Because when someone realizes the mental battlefield they constructed was nothing more than a sandbox compared to the map you were navigating, the ego takes the first hit. They thought you operated on instinct, yet everything you did was deliberate. They thought your reactions were emotional, yet every silence was strategic. They thought your pace was slow, yet your mind was processing variables they didn't even know existed. They thought they saw the whole board, yet they never noticed the hidden layers beneath their feet. And now that you've stepped forward, they feel that shift, the recalibration of hierarchy, the recognition that nothing they planned ever had the ability to outmaneuver you. What shakes them most is realizing how early you saw through them. They believed you were oblivious. They believed you were falling for their tactics. They believed their false kindness, manipulations, and subtle power plays were invisible. They didn't realize your mind registers inconsistencies like seismic vibrations. You analyzed tone, timing, micro-expressions, contradictions, emotional leakage. You don't listen to what people say, you listen to what they fail to hide. And nothing threatens fragile minds more than encountering someone who sees the truth without them ever speaking it. They didn't know they were being profiled the moment they opened their mouths. They didn't know their motives were being dissected the moment they walked in the room. They didn't know the things they tried to distract you with only helped you see their patterns faster. That's the part that breaks them now. The realization that every lie, every front, every facade, every attempt to appear smarter only exposed them deeper. They were trying to outthink someone who wasn't even playing their game. Your intelligence didn't operate horizontally. It operated vertically. You weren't thinking faster than them. You were thinking from above them. And once a mind like yours sees the architecture behind someone's intentions, the game ends long before they realize it started. That's why they panic when they look at you now. They aren't just seeing a person, they're seeing the consequences of miscalculating the wrong mind. They feel small around you, not because you belittle them, but because their illusions no longer inflate them. They realize how much of their identity was built on assumptions that don't hold up against someone who thinks in dimensions instead of lines. They realize your neutrality was never confusion. It was evaluation. They realize your distance was never weakness. It was data collection. They realize your restraint was never fear. It was control. And now they're haunted by what you saw. Not the things they said, not the things they did, but the motives beneath those things. You saw the insecurity under their confidence. You saw the desperation behind their arrogance. You saw the envy hiding inside their compliments. You saw the need to dominate wrapped inside their humor. You saw the cracks in their self-image that they tried to cover with noise. And the worst part is, they didn't know they were revealing any of it. They didn't know your silence was documenting everything. They didn't know the way you looked at them wasn't passive. It was a full extraction of emotional intel. Now they can't hide from you. Not because you expose them, but because they know you could. Your mind becomes the quiet threat in every room. Your presence becomes the reminder of everything they failed to understand. Your calm becomes the evidence that you were never bothered by their games in the first place. And the more they realize this, the more their confidence fractures, the more their posture shifts, the more their voice trembles. Their ego can't handle the fact that the person they once dismissed is the one who could dismantle them with a single sentence if you wanted to. But that's what adds another layer of fear. You don't want to. You don't need to. You don't operate from the same emotional palette as them. They built their identity on winning imaginary battles. You built yours on understanding the terrain. They needed validation. You needed clarity. They wanted to be right. You wanted the truth. And truth will always outrank pride. That's why your rise feels inevitable now. They can feel it in the way you think, the way you move, the way you see through everything without announcing it. They know you're not climbing the ladder. They know you're redesigning it. What really unravels them is the realization that your intelligence is not loud, theatrical, or self-advertised. It's quiet, internal, calculated. It doesn't need to be seen to be felt. It rearranges dynamics without making a sound. It shifts alliances without sending a signal. It dismantles egos without raising a hand. They used to misinterpret that quietness as emptiness, when in truth it was the calm of someone who sees 12 moves ahead. It was the stillness of a strategist observing amateurs reenact games they barely understood. And somewhere along the line, they realized their moves no longer made sense. Their tactics no longer landed. Their assumptions no longer held weight. Because the moment someone interacts with a mind operating above their framework, their entire system destabilizes. They don't know how to respond. They can't predict outcomes. They can't weaponize chaos. Nothing works because none of it was designed for someone like you. You are not unpredictable. You are unreadable. There's a difference. Unpredictable people are chaotic. Unreadable people are composed. Your unpredictability is measured. Your silence is deliberate. Your responses are calibrated. And that creates an aura that even they can't describe. An energy that says you've already considered the consequences of a moment before anyone else even recognizes the moment exists. It unnerves them. It shifts their breathing. It rearranges their internal hierarchy without you having to speak a single word. That's why they avoid challenging you now. Not because you intimidate them with force, but because you dismantle them with understanding. They can't manipulate someone who sees their manipulation forming. They can't lie to someone who hears the truth inside the lie. They can't play games with someone who already knows the ending. Your mind denies them the illusion of power. It denies them the illusion of superiority. It denies them the illusion of control. And for people like them, people who survive off the belief that they are the smartest in the room, that denial is lethal. Their identity fractures under the weight of your clarity. Their confidence corrodes under the gaze of someone who sees them accurately. Their facade crumbles when they realize their moves were predictable from the beginning. They aren't scared of losing to you. They're scared of being revealed by you, because revelation is the one thing they never prepared for. They studied strategies, not consequences. They perfected tactics, not self-awareness. They polished their performance, not their character. And now, standing in front of someone who doesn't fall for theatrics, they feel the hollowness of everything they built. Your existence is an audit they never agreed to, but can't escape. You don't confront them. You don't expose them. You simply see them. And that alone is enough to unravel the identity they curated for control. They lived their life depending on people misreading them, and now they're choking because they finally met someone who doesn't. This is where the real shift happens, when a person realizes that the power they thought they possessed was borrowed from the ignorance of others. They didn't dominate because they were brilliant. They dominated because no one else was paying attention. But you were. You always were. You didn't need to interrupt them to understand them. You didn't need to argue to dismantle them. You didn't need to raise your voice to shift the dynamic. You let them talk. You let them reveal themselves through their certainty. You let them unravel at their own pace. They mistook your restraint for weakness, not knowing restraint is the signature of someone who's already won. People like that collapse when their mind meets a mirror sharp enough to cut through their delusions. And you became that mirror by simply existing at your full clarity. They don't fear your intellect. They fear what your intellect strips away from theirs. The illusion that their thinking is superior. Their intention is hidden. Their performance is convincing. You don't react to their bait, not because you're naive, but because you're uninterested in participating in low-level games. That's the razor that slices their ego open. They realize their entire psychological toolkit has no effect on you. They can't trigger you, shift you, or redirect you. You remain unmoved, and that stillness feels like a verdict. They start recalibrating around you, overthinking their words, swallowing their impulses, calculating their tone. They don't know how to be themselves anymore, because their original self was structured around manipulation. Your presence forces authenticity out of them, and authenticity is something they never trained for. They don't know how to operate without masks, and now their masks feel glued to their hands instead of their faces. Every time they try to put one on, you see the attempt. You see the shift in their energy. You see the crack in their voice. You see the performance glitch mid-sentence. They can't hide the distortion. They can't hide the hesitation. They can't hide the fear creeping into their calculation process. Because this is what people misunderstand. The world doesn't crumble when intelligence wins the argument. It crumbles when intelligence stops engaging. When you refuse to respond to their projections, you rip the script out of their hands. When you don't play the role they wrote for you, you invalidate their entire narrative. They don't know what version of themselves to be around you anymore, because every version they've tried was based on the assumption that you were operating on their level. And now, they know you're not. You were never meant to fit into their dynamics. You were meant to outgrow them. You were meant to reveal the architecture behind them. You were meant to break the ceiling they mistook for the sky. And the moment they realized that, the dynamic inverted. You stopped being the participant. You became the observer. They stopped being the guide. They became the experiment. They started watching your reactions, trying to predict what you see, wondering how much you understand. Every pause becomes analysis. Every silence becomes a calculation. Every glance becomes a scan. You didn't change behavior, they changed perception. And once perception shifts, power shifts. Because now they walk into rooms with the knowledge that their mind is no longer the dominant presence. Yours is. What they never anticipated is that intelligence becomes terrifying, not when it is loud, but when it is quiet. When it doesn't argue, when it doesn't prove, when it doesn't defend, when it simply observes and chooses. You didn't dethrone them. You let them realize the throne they claimed was made out of cardboard. You didn't expose their flaws. You let their own actions illuminate them. You didn't interrupt their performance. You gave them the stage, and they exposed the entire script themselves. The downfall wasn't crafted by you. It was triggered by their arrogance and revealed by your clarity. They're not avoiding you because they dislike you. They're avoiding you because you make them meet themselves. You make them confront the truth they hide from others. You make them aware of the gap between who they pretend to be and who they actually are. Your intelligence doesn't destroy them. It disarms them. And once disarmed, they have nothing left to hide behind. The moment they realized you saw through their strategies, they lost the ability to use them. They don't fear what you could do. They fear what you already know. You became the silent audit of everything they thought they mastered. The psychological equation they thought they were solving was actually solving them. They thought they were reading you, but they were feeding you information. They thought they were competing with you, but they were benchmarking themselves. They thought they were ahead of you, but they were walking on a trail you created long before they even recognized it existed. That's the real wound. The realization that you weren't playing defense. You were designing the environment. You weren't reacting to them. You were decoding them. You weren't impressed by them. You were mapping their limitations. This is where the panic sets in. When they recognize that the mind they treated as predictable is the same mind that predicted them with disturbing accuracy. Your insights weren't guesses. They were patterns. They were sequences. They were algorithms. You didn't just understand their motives. You understood their operating system. And once someone understands your operating system, you lose the ability to manipulate the interface. They've lost control of the conversation before it even begins. Their words betray their patterns. Their behaviors betray their intentions. Their energy betrays their insecurity. You see all of it in the first 5 seconds, and they know it. Your presence becomes a pressure test for their self-image. They start slipping. They start contradicting themselves. They start explaining things they weren't asked to explain. They start justifying behaviors that weren't even questioned. Their nervous system betrays their mask for them, because standing in front of someone who sees them clearly forces their ego to tremble. They can't posture anymore. They can't bluff anymore. They can't inflate themselves anymore. Every attempt feels exposed. Every trick feels childish. Every tactic feels outdated. They realize that their mind is not the strongest force in the room. Yours is. And you don't even weaponize it. You don't attack them. You don't belittle them. You don't humiliate them. That's what makes it worse. If you fought them, they could pretend you were equals. If you argued with them, they could pretend they were relevant. If you competed with them, they could pretend the battlefield belonged to both sides. But you don't. You just exist. And your existence alone becomes the proof that the hierarchy was never in their favor. That's why they rewrite the story when you're gone. They diminish you when you're not there to respond. They reshape memories so they can survive the truth. They try to paint you as cold, arrogant, manipulative, anything that helps them avoid admitting they miscalculated. Because admitting they miscalculated means admitting their intellect wasn't enough. And people like them would rather reinvent reality than accept their mind was outmatched. The real twist is that you never set out to beat them. You never wanted competition. You never saw them as opponents. You simply followed your clarity. You simply saw what was real. You simply refused to shrink your intelligence for their comfort. They interpreted your authenticity as threat because anything they cannot control becomes dangerous to them. They fear what they cannot predict. They resent what they cannot influence. They attack what they cannot understand. But intelligence like yours isn't reactive. It isn't emotional. It isn't fragile. It simply is. And nothing terrifies fragile egos more than something that simply exists beyond their reach. Now they move around you carefully, like someone navigating a room filled with glass pressure plates. They measure their tone. They monitor their expressions. They censor their impulses. They are no longer trying to beat you. They're trying to avoid being exposed by you. Their entire strategy shifts from dominance to damage control. But damage control never works against someone who already read the blueprint. They don't realize you see their panic as clearly as you saw their performance. And here's the part that solidifies the psychological hierarchy. You don't hate them for their attempts. You don't resent them for their behavior. You don't even hold grudges. You simply understand them. And for them, that understanding feels like judgment. They think your silence is condemnation. They think your distance is superiority. They think your neutrality is mockery. They don't understand that neutrality is the only place you can stand once you outgrow the entire frequency they operate on. What they're finally realizing is that intelligence doesn't announce itself. It doesn't brag. It doesn't beg for recognition. It just quietly rearranges the world around it until the truth becomes impossible to ignore. And now the truth is sitting on their chest like a weight they can't lift. The mind they once dismissed is the same mind recalibrating their entire sense of self. The person they tried to outthink is the same person who saw their blind spot long before they stepped into the room. The one they underestimated became the one they now orbit around cautiously. You never needed dominance because clarity is its own form of authority. You never needed to win because you were never competing. You never needed to expose them because their reactions exposed them for you. And now, as the dust settles, one truth remains unshakable. They didn't lose because you were too smart. They lost because they didn't know who they were up against. They misread the silence. They misread the stillness. They misread the mind they thought they could beat. Only to discover, far too late, you were the one running the equation the whole time.